If we were to place Goku and Superman into a bodybuilding battle, who would win? Let's find out. Obviously, if we were comparing them in an actual bodybuilding competition, we would have them line up in the 8 compulsory poses, including poses such as the front lat spread, front double bicep, side chest, and side tricep, among other poses. On top of this, we would also have them line up in the 4 quarter turns, basically looking at their physiques from both the front, back, and both sides. And we would have them lined up on stage right next to each other, under the same lighting. Now, the best that we have to work with here are different mangaka and comic book illustrators. And even within the different artists or forms of these characters, there's so much variation between themselves. So for this video, I'm simply going to take a compilation of shots of both of these characters, some of the ones that show off their physiques in the best ways. So let's start with Superman's physique. He looks great, no doubt about it. He's got an amazing V taper with a very small and narrow waist. And one of the things that I love about his physique is that he has that classic feel to him, which makes sense because he was created when bodybuilding was in its primitive stages, even before the Mr. Olympia competition, which, if you're not familiar with, is the biggest bodybuilding competition in the world. Basically, it's the best of the best, and it started in 1965 with your first winner, Larry Scott. So with this classic style of physique, Superman has a really nice flow to his body, meaning that he has a wide chest and broad shoulders with a small waist. And there's only one issue that I could really find, and that comes with his lower body. His legs are just a bit smaller than his upper body in most shots that you can find of him, which kind of makes sense because if you look at the classic bodybuilders, their legs are typically a little smaller than their upper bodies as well, and you don't see that issue as much in modern day bodybuilding. And having said this rating is going to be difficult because we don't get a whole lot of shirtless shots of Superman. Most of them are with his suit on. Conditioning in particular is going to be what's most difficult to critique when viewing his physique. Yet having said that, I think it's pretty safe to say that he's very well conditioned. In the shirtless shots that we do have of him, we can see a lot of muscular separation and even some feathering and vascularity, which means that he is very lean. And we would just need more evidence to determine if he's bodybuilder kind of lean, like having a stage ready presence. But overall, as you would imagine, Superman's conditioning is really good. Now let's move on to the legendary anime hero, Goku. It's easy to see that he has what most people would call the ideal physique, very much so like Superman's. And of course his size is going to vary depending on which form he's in. A lot of his newer forms like Super Saiyan God and Ultra Instinct and all that have him being very lean. So we're going to primarily look at his older form, the basic Super Saiyan. And we're going to take him when he looks his best in this form, which I believe is on planet Namek against Frieza. Hey, if you remember how epic that fight was against Frieza, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know your favorite moment in the comments down below. Don't tell anyone, but mine was when Krillin got completely destroyed. Good times, good times. The reason I want to look at this form is because it's not overly muscular like his 2nd or 3rd grade forms, yet it's not overly lean. This is a really good classic bodybuilding style of physique, one that I think matches Superman's really well. So when analyzing his physique, we can see he also has a really good flow, which means having that great V taper or wide shoulders and a narrow waist. Another thing that I love is that his muscle bellies are totally full, meaning that they don't look flat at all. At all times, it kind of looks like he just has a pump from working out. Same thing with Goku as with Superman. We don't get a whole lot of shots of his legs, but from what we can actually see, they look really good to me. To be honest, in general, they look a lot more proportionate than Superman's. I also think that Goku has better shoulder caps, meaning that he has those bolder shoulders. And I don't see Superman drawn with these kind of shoulders very often. Having said that, with some of the latest physique updates from Henry Cavill, oh my gosh, have you seen that guy? His shoulder caps are crazy. If you haven't seen any of his updated pictures, check them out. All of these things I'm saying are based on an average of what I'm seeing across the board. Of course, there are going to be some shots in which Superman's shoulders look absolutely incredible. But if we're taking the average overall, I definitely think Goku in his Super Saiyan form, especially on Namek, has amazing shoulders and legs, ones in which Superman is typically lacking in. Another thing to keep in mind are their actual stats. Superman is listed at 6'3" and 235 pounds, and according to Phantom, Goku is apparently 5'9" and 137 pounds, and I'm sure that's not very accurate. It may be kind of more of his base form, but he's definitely a lot bigger in his Super Saiyan form. If he's actually 5'9" and fills out his frame just like this, I would say he's probably around the same size as someone like Frank Zane, the GOAT of aesthetics when it comes to bodybuilding. And even more so, I think his physique favors Ed Cornies, who is known as one of the greatest posers of all time in bodybuilding. This guy was around 5'7" and about 190 on stage. This type of physique is more of what I see Goku as, so about 60 pounds more than what he's listed, at least in his base form, I assume. I can even see Goku's weight going all the way up to 200 pounds very easily in this form. Now given this, Superman is definitely going to have the height advantage on stage, and while that can have some drawbacks, because typically taller taller people look a little bit more lanky usually. Oftentimes, taller people also stand out more, like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Chris Bumstead. And because of that, a lot of times they will win. Keep in mind the results of this competition is also going to depend on which division we're talking about. For instance, where Superman has a little bit more of a lean physique in terms of muscle mass, I think he would do really well in the men's physique division. Whereas in my opinion, Goku would do better in the classic physique division, especially with those legs. So in terms of muscle mass for their frames, I definitely have to give the win to Goku. I just feel like in the Super Saiyan form, he absolutely maxes out his frame. Now I know in the Super Saiyan grade 2 and 3 forms, he's a bit bigger, but at that point he loses a lot of his proportions. And I think they're pretty perfect in the regular Super Saiyan form. And because of Goku's legs and his shoulder width, I'm gonna have to give him the win in symmetry and proportions as well. And side note, I mentioned that Superman was created during bodybuilding's primitive stages. Well, Goku was created in the early to mid 80s, which by most standards is seen as the golden era of bodybuilding. So I'm sure Akira Toriyama definitely took inspiration from some of those classic bodybuilders when creating Goku, especially in the Dragon Ball Z series. In terms of their conditioning, I would have to give them a tie. It's obviously hard to say, and we get a lot more shirtless shots of Goku, but obviously they're both very well conditioned with really good striations and muscle separations and even some vascularity, meaning that overall the winning of our bodybuilding battle is Goku. Now this is just my opinion based on the shots that I've seen. Who would you like to see in a bodybuilding battle next? Let me know in the comments below.